Chicago at night was like a massive pane of glass, reflecting the loneliness of those who thought they'd reached the top. The yellow lights poured down from the city's highest floors, where Wade Bennett often stood, whiskey in hand, eyes tracing the winding roads below, veins of a world he no longer belonged to. They called him a financial genius, the man with the golden touch, the youngest CEO on the Forbes 100 list. But none of those titles meant anything to Wade. They were just numbers, cold lines on a chart, deals completed in boardrooms where every glance was calculated and every smile came with a price. He had learned to measure his worth by the digits after a decimal point. Every successful deal and new asset added to the balance sheet was another scar on a hardened heart. Wade Bennett knew how to win but had forgotten how to feel. His penthouse occupied the 92nd floor of Bennett Tower, also his corporation's headquarters. Everything in it was designed to exude power. Glass walls overlooking the city, dark wood floors, Italian chairs, and priceless original paintings. It was all perfect, so perfect that it left no room for human breath. Wade used to joke to himself that if someone died in that apartment, it might take weeks before anyone noticed because the place never made a sound of life. Sometimes, in the late hours, he would ask himself, why didn't happiness come, even though he had everything an orphaned boy like him had once dreamed of? Maybe because when he looked down from that glass wall, he saw thousands of lights, but none belonged to him. The next morning, Chicago woke under a thin layer of fog and silver winter light. In Wade's office, everything unfolded as usual. Morning meetings, financial reports, contract signings. His life ran on a rhythm programmed never to stop. Good morning, Mr. Bennett. The community meeting is set for 10 o'clock, with 5 consulting firms presenting their proposals, his assistant's voice said through the intercom. Wade replied, "Bring me coffee and the summary." No further words were needed. His company was under media fire for lacking social responsibility. The PR department proposed a model charity initiative to polish the company's image. Wade agreed to host the presentations, not because he cared, but because he hated seeing his reputation tarnished. Community, to him, was just a budget line. At 10 a.m., the conference room on the 70th floor gleamed a long wooden table, black leather chairs, and glass walls framing the city below. The consultants, dressed to impress, held up slides full of words like impact and social effectiveness, all translated into the language of profit. Wade sat at the head of the table, quietly watching. He'd heard too many presentations just like this, until the last woman walked in. No grand introduction, no entourage. The door opened, and she stepped in quietly, Donna Carter. She wore a simple navy dress and black shoes, her hair tied neatly back, her face bare of makeup. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, but something about her, her eyes, walk, voice, changed the air in the room. "Good morning. I'm Donna Carter, from the Foundations Collective." Her voice was warm, steady, not loud, not soft as if every word carried its weight. Wade nodded. "You have 10 minutes. 5 will do," she said, opening an old leather folder and sliding a wrinkled piece of paper across the table. Wade frowned. "What's this?" "A drawing from a little girl in the South Side. Her name's Imani. When I asked what she wished for, she said, 'I want to live.'" The room fell silent. Wade looked down at the paper, a child's crude drawing, 2 people holding hands under the sun, a house, a big red heart. No data, no charts, no revenue projections, just crayon on paper. Donna looked up, meeting his gaze. The previous proposals were all very professional, but they were all the same: writing checks, taking pictures, publishing headlines. That's not helping. That's PR. Wade leaned back, lips curling faintly. "Are you lecturing me, Miss Carter?" "No, just telling the truth. And truth is the rarest thing in rooms like this." The board was stunned. Colin Reeves, Wade's CFO, shot him a warning glance. But Wade felt something strange. He wanted to hear more. "Suppose," he said, "you could do it differently. What would you do?" Donna answered without hesitation. "I'd make the rich stop thinking they're heroes. I'd ask them to give not just money but time, mind, and heart." "That's not a business model." "No. It's humanity." She smiled, then picked up the paper. I understand if that's not what you're looking for. She stood to leave. Wait, Wade said. She turned. Leave the proposal. I'll take a look. Donna studied him momentarily, as if to be sure she'd heard right. Why? Because you're the first person in this room who dared to tell the truth. Their eyes met a brief moment, sharp as a cut. When the door closed behind her, Colin sighed. You're not seriously considering working with her, are you? She just called you out in front of everyone. Wade replied quietly. Maybe she reminded me of who I used to be. That night, Wade sat alone in his office, looking through the proposal Donna had left behind. Among words about children, community, and opportunity, one line was underlined. Instead of asking, how much can we give? Ask, how long are we willing to show up? Show up, a phrase he'd never truly understood. It was the first night in years that Wade Bennett didn't touch his whiskey. A week later, Wade sent Donna a message. I want to meet, not to talk PR, but to understand what you meant. She agreed, perhaps out of curiosity, or to prove he was pretending. They met at Bennett Global's office on the 50th floor, where white light bounced off glass panels reflecting the tired faces of people in suits. Donna stepped in, carrying warmth from the south side that cut through the city's cold, sterile air. Wade gestured for her to sit. I've read your proposal. Honestly, it's unrealistic. She smiled softly. I didn't write it to be approved. I wrote it so someone might think differently. Congratulations, you've kept me awake for a week. They began to talk about the Riverside Community Center where Donna had grown up. I learned to read there, she said. A woman named Thelma Temperance taught me and the neighborhood kids. She used to say, money's easy, but showing up costs. I didn't understand then. I do now. Wade asked, what's it like today? Abandoned. Cracked walls, a basketball court full of weeds. But if you look closely, you can still feel its heartbeat. He was silent. For a moment, Wade saw himself in that crumbling building, something that once had a soul, now only a shell. Let's go see it, he said. Donna blinked. You mean? I want to see it for myself. I don't invest in things I don't understand. She studied him, then nodded. The next day, they drove south. The roads narrowed, graffiti covered the walls, and children played on cracked sidewalks. The air was heavy with dust, but alive with real people. Riverside appeared, a worn-down building with shattered windows, moss on the basketball court, and a tilted sign barely hanging on. Donna walked ahead, placing a hand gently on the rough wall. Her voice softened. Here, I learned I was worthy of love even when poor and unseen. Mrs. Temperance gave that to hundreds of kids like me. Wade stood beside her, silent. She turned to him. What do you see now? A chance to repair. Donna frowned. Repair what? Myself. The words made her pause. For the first time, surprise flickered in her guarded eyes. Then she smiled, a rare, unguarded smile. If you mean it, then welcome to the South Side. That afternoon, they stopped by Donna's grandmother's house, a small home tucked among magnolia trees, its walls painted pale yellow, the porch filled with flower pots. Grandma Ruby opened the door, eyes sharp and amused. So, you're the rich CEO, my granddaughter says doesn't believe in people. Wade looked slightly embarrassed. Yes, I suppose that's me. She laughed. Good. At least you're honest. Come in and eat before I change my mind. That dinner was the first time Wade sat in a laughter-filled kitchen. Elijah, Donna's brother, joked around. Grandma Ruby told old stories, and the scent of food filled the air. Wade, who once measured lunch by the value of a contract, found himself smiling genuinely. After dinner, when the dishes were done, Grandma Ruby sat beside him. You know, my granddaughter doesn't trust men easily. She saw her mother break apart because of someone who didn't know how to love. If you plan on being in her life, ensure you're not that man. Wade lowered his head. I don't know if I deserve her. No one ever does, son. Just be real. That night, on the drive back, rain fell softly. Donna was quiet the whole way. When the car stopped, she looked at him through the rearview mirror. You're not quite what I imagined. How so? Less cold, more lonely. Wade chuckled. And you? I don't know. Maybe a little reckless bringing a CEO to my neighborhood. They both laughed, a fragile, hesitant laugh, but true. And in that moment between the falling rain, the yellow glow of streetlights, and their breathing, something began to stir. Something Wade thought he had buried long ago. His heart. No one expected that a week after their first meeting, Donna Carter would walk into Bennett Global as the new community project advisor. The news stirred the entire office. A woman from the poor South Side working for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It sounded like a joke. But Wade Bennett didn't care what people thought. He wanted to know whether her words that day were valid, or just another fleeting act of virtue like the thousands he'd seen before. Donna's first morning at Bennett Global was met with cold stares and polite smirks. She was used to that. People who had to climb from the bottom were familiar with being looked down on. She carried an old laptop, stacks of thick files, and a worn leather notebook. Wade noticed it during a meeting and asked, "You still write things by hand?" Donna smiled. "When something matters, I want to feel it through the pen, not a cursor." He didn't reply, but something in him stirred. Their meetings were always tense. Donna spoke the language of people. Wade spoke the language of numbers. "We need a clear ROI breakdown. And I need to know how many kids can return to school. You can't quantify emotions. And you've forgotten that not everything unmeasurable is unreal." Wade often fell silent after she spoke. Maybe because Donna kept touching the one part of him he'd long tried to bury, the human part. One Thursday evening, when the office had emptied, Wade stayed behind in the conference room, city lights flickering through the glass as the fog rolled in. Donna entered, holding a report. "You're still here? Why go home?" he said quietly, his voice hollow. She sat across from him, silent for a few seconds. "Do you ever feel lonely, Mr. Bennett?" He gave a small laugh. "Is this a therapy session?" "No. I think people can't save anyone while drowning themselves." The words silenced him. The light reflected off Donna's face, soft, warm. Wade watched her for a long moment, long enough that she finally asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Because no one's ever said that to me without worrying I'd fire them." She smiled. "I'm not here to please you." Clearly. They both laughed, a slight sound, but genuine. For the first time, the cold air inside Bennett Global carried something that resembled breath. The following week, Donna invited Wade to visit the Riverside Community Center, the project she called the soul of the neighborhood. When they arrived, Wade stopped short. The old building stood among the sounds of children playing, its walls stained, the yard overgrown. Yet something in the air, the laughter, the music from a nearby house felt strangely warm. "This is it?" Wade asked. "Yes. I call it the sleeping heart. I need you to help wake it." Donna led him around the place, pointing to corners and telling stories of children who once studied there and neighbors who'd brought bricks and paint to help build it. "Every wall has a story. I don't want to replace them. I want them to live again." Wade ran his hand along the rough brick wall, its coolness stirring a memory of his orphanage dormitory. Another worn, broken place, yet the only one where he'd ever belonged. "How much do you need to rebuild it?" he asked. "I don't want you to rebuild it," Donna said. "I want you to do it with us." He frowned. "With you?" "Yes. Paint walls, clean floors, and play with the kids. Not just write a check." He chuckled. "I don't think I'm cut out for painting walls." "Try. You might discover a hidden talent." That day, Wade rolled up his sleeves and painted for the first time. The pale blue brushed against his wrist. Sunlight streamed through broken glass. Donna stood nearby, her hair tousled, moving in the light breeze. Amid laughter, fresh paint, and sweat, Wade felt his heartbeat change, not from exhaustion but from being alive. Donna invited Wade to dinner at her grandmother Ruby's house one weekend evening. He was about to refuse, but Donna said, "You can't understand the project until you understand the people. Are you luring me into an ambush?" "Maybe," she smiled. Grandma Ruby's house sat on the southern edge of Atlanta, nearly an hour's drive from downtown. Wade arrived, slightly awkward in his white shirt among the modest homes. The door opened, and Grandma Ruby's mischievous eyes studied him. "Well, the cold CEO finally showed up. Come in, you'll melt once you try my stew." Wade laughed, surprised by the warmth of her tone. The air smelled of butter, cinnamon, and roasted chicken in the kitchen. Donna helped her grandmother, hair tied up, a soft smile on her face. Wade stood there for a moment, and his heart skipped. Dinner was full of laughter and simple stories. Elijah, Donna's brother, teased, "My sister said you don't know how to smile. But looking at you now, I might have to retract that." Grandma Ruby said, "Elijah, eat before I put you to work." Wade laughed, embarrassed. For the first time, he felt surrounded by something tangible family. After dinner, while the others cleaned up, Wade stepped onto the porch. The air was warm, damp, with the scent of rain. Donna joined him, holding 2 glasses of iced tea. "How long have you lived alone in that penthouse?" 7 years. "Ever feel lonely?" "No, I'm too busy." Donna smiled faintly. "Sometimes work is just a way to hide from feelings." He looked at her. "You read me too easily." "No need. I used to be like you, except I chose to believe, and you didn't." The wind stirred, the streetlight reflected in her eyes. Wade wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. So he sighed. "What if I told you? I don't know how to trust anymore." Donna was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Then start small. Trust a smile, a glance, a person who stays even when you don't deserve it." Her words fell into the night, light as rain. When Wade left Grandma Ruby's house, he looked back through the window. Donna was laughing with her grandmother, her hair loose, and her face glowing in the kitchen light. A simple image, but one he couldn't forget. Not because she was beautiful, but because he felt warm for the first time. In the days that followed, they worked together at Riverside. Wade stopped giving orders and began asking for her thoughts. They painted walls, planted trees, and organized games for the kids. Donna laughed more. Wade spoke less because he just wanted to listen. One evening at sunset, Donna stood in the old basketball court, ball in hand. "Ever play before?" she asked. "Never. I only learned to play the stock market." "Try." She tossed the ball to him. He caught it clumsily, and they laughed. In that moment, sunlight spilled over her shoulders and across his face. Wade found himself saying, "Donna, you make me believe that. Maybe I still have a heart." Donna looked at him, surprised, then smiled. "Then take good care of it," he answered, "Not sure I can control it anymore." Back at his penthouse that night, the city still gleamed beneath him, but the light no longer felt powerful. He opened his laptop and typed a note. "Today, I believed in something that doesn't exist on a balance sheet." And Wade Bennett went to sleep for the first time in years without thinking about money. He thought about a woman with steady eyes, a warm smile, and a voice that echoed in his mind. Start by trusting the smallest thing. Their wedding took place in Grandma Ruby's backyard, beneath strings of golden lights hung from tree to tree. No designer gown, no glamorous guests, no cameras flashing, only the sound of old jazz playing from Elijah's speaker, the scent of jasmine drifting through the air, and the people they loved most. Donna wore a simple white dress that Grandma Ruby had altered from her mother's old gown. Wade wore a grey suit with a blue tie, the only new thing he'd bought because Donna had said, "We don't need expensive, just honest." As the minister read their vows, the breeze rustled through the eaves, making the lights sway gently. Wade held Donna's hand, his eyes glistening, and didn't hide it. "You know," he whispered as the ring slipped onto her finger, "I used to think I didn't have a home, but now, I think I've found one." Donna smiled softly. "And I used to think I could never trust a man. Now I do." Applause broke out, followed by hugs and tears. Grandma Ruby said, "Remember, love isn't about keeping each other perfect. It's about learning to forgive the times you're not." Wade nodded, not knowing that he would remember those words like a prophecy one day. Their wedding night didn't take place in a 5-star hotel. They returned to Wade's penthouse, the same place Donna had once stood, awestruck. "My God," she said, looking around, "this feels more like a museum than a home." "That's because before you, it only had things, not people." She laughed, slipped off her shoes, and walked barefoot on the cold wood floor. "Well, now it does, and I'll make it come alive." They opened a cheap bottle of wine Elijah had given them and sat by the window, watching the city below. "It's strange," Donna said softly. "I used to hate Chicago. It felt cold, fake. But now, with you here, It's beautiful. Wade took her hand, his eyes serious. Promise me one thing. What thing? No matter what happens, don't disappear. Donna smiled, resting her hand on his cheek. Then you promise me this, no matter what happens, don't doubt me. They kissed under the dim city light, a long, warm, peaceful kiss. But outside those glass walls, Chicago was still a city that never slept, where lights never went out and storms never truly rested. The months that followed were the happiest of their lives. Wade learned to cook, though he burned the pan the first time. Donna filled the home with plants, hung photos, changed the curtains, and brought life into a space that had once been soulless. Each morning, Donna brought him coffee. A CEO who wakes up after his wife? That's fine. I only need to be your CEO now. She rolled her eyes and laughed. They walked through the city streets at night, shared pastries, and discussed the Riverside project. Wade spent real time there, not just funding it, but painting walls, teaching kids math. Donna watched him, her eyes full of pride. You know what the kids call you? What? Mr. Wall Street, the guy who plays basketball. Sounds like a cartoon character. That's right, you're their hero. In those moments, Wade felt truly alive. No ticking clocks, no reports, no numbers. Just Donna's laughter, the scent of her hair in the wind, and the warmth of shared dinners. One morning, Donna held a pregnancy test 2 lines. She stood still for a long time, tears falling without knowing if they were from fear or joy. We're going to have a baby, she whispered, touching her belly, but she decided not to tell him yet. She wanted to wait for something special, maybe their first anniversary, or the Riverside opening. She wanted that moment to be perfect. But sometimes, fate tests love in crueler ways. That December, Chicago was so cold that breath turned to smoke. Inside Bennett Tower, meetings piled one after another. Colin Reeves, Wade's longtime partner and CFO, had been watching him closely. Colin's frustration grew when Wade funneled more resources into the community project. You're turning a financial empire into a charity, Wade. It's not charity, it's their responsibility. You're getting soft. I can see it. Wade didn't respond. Colin had been his friend, the one who knew him best, but now there was a distance between them, between logic and heart. Colin walked away, leaving a chill in his wake. A few days later, disaster struck. The company's internal accounts were hacked, client data leaked. An investigation began. Wade stopped sleeping, throwing himself into crisis control. Donna tried to help, but he told her, "Don't worry, it's just business." Then came the blow. The IT department reported that the suspicious transactions originated from a secondary account under Donna Carter, your wife. The room fell silent. Wade froze, pulse pounding. What did you say? Colin sighed theatrically. Maybe someone used her name, but the media won't care. They'll say your wife's involved. In Wade's mind, thousands of voices screamed, believe, don't believe, verify, doubt. He wanted to run home and ask her, but he was terrified of her answer. He had promised not to doubt her, but the fear of losing everything turned that promise into a luxury. That night, Donna sat in the living room when he came home late. Are you okay? She asked. We need to talk. His voice was low, stern. Donna saw something in his eyes that made her chest tighten. Suspicion. He handed her a printed statement, lines of strange transactions. This is your account. What? That's impossible. Donna, what did you do with this money? I've never seen it. Wade, do you believe me? He said nothing, only silence heavy, louder than accusation. You think I stole from your company? She asked, trembling. I just want the truth. I am your truth, Wade, she cried, stepping closer. I gave you everything. Do you think I need your money? He turned away, fists clenched. You don't understand, too much is at stake. No, Wade, you are what's at stake. Her words cut straight through him. Donna walked into the bedroom and closed the door. A freshly printed ultrasound image was in her coat pocket, 2 tiny shapes holding hands. She had planned to show him that night. Now, she couldn't. The next morning, the headlines exploded. Bennett Global Scandal CEO's wife under investigation. Everything collapsed. Wade threw himself into damage control. Donna, hounded by reporters, hid at Grandma Ruby's house. She texted him, "Please, believe me," he replied only, "I need time." That evening, Donna returned to the penthouse, hoping to talk. But Wade met her in his office, his tone cold. "I want a divorce." Donna froze. "What did you say?" "It's the only way to protect you from the media, to separate you from the company. A divorce agreement will keep you out of prosecution. Are you protecting me or pushing me away?" He looked down, silent. Donna broke down. "You promised, Wade. No matter what happens, you wouldn't doubt me." "I'm sorry." She stared at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "No, Wade. You're not sorry for doubting me. You're sorry because you never truly believed in me." She walked out into the rain, her thin coat soaked through, hands cradling her belly where two tiny hearts had just begun to beat. Wade stood at the window, watching her fade into the storm. He didn't know that in that moment, he had just lost the most precious thing he would ever have. That night, the rain came down over Chicago as if the sky knew something would break. From the 92nd floor of Bennett Tower, the city below looked like a distorted mirror, its lights blurred and warped, much like their love, still shining, but already cracked. Wade Bennett sat in his office, fingers interlaced, eyes fixed on the computer screen. The words and numbers kept spinning in his head. Auxiliary account, Donna Carter, unauthorized transfer, $2.5 million. Everything pointed in one direction. Her name. "You're sure, Wade?" Colin Reeves asked evenly, like a man confirming a theorem. "We have logs?" "Yes. From the internal system. I checked 3 times. She used her personal IP address and her personal account." "That's impossible," Wade said, shaking his head. "Donna doesn't care about money." Colin shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe someone paid her off. She's worked with many organizations, including the media and donors. A little power can blur judgment." Wade was silent, his thoughts tangled like a knotted thread. He wanted to throw all of it away, but her image rose in his mind, her smile, her hands, her voice all demanding he trust her. Then Colin's voice cut through again. "You have to act fast. If this leaks, shareholders won't forgive you. They'll think you're covering for her. You really want to risk the whole empire for one woman?" That question was a blade, cold and familiar, slicing through his memories. He thought of the boy he once was, an orphan, who had trusted a foster family's promise not to hurt or abandon him. They had done both. Since then, he had learned to trust logic, not people. And now, that same instinct left him stranded at the crossroads of his soul. Trust or self-preserve. Wade came home near midnight. Donna was awake, sitting on the couch, the light washing over her tired face. She'd seen the headlines. She knew. "You weren't going to tell me?" she asked, her voice raw. "I wanted to hear the truth from you first." "What truth?" "Donna, did you use the company's account?" "No." "You're sure?" "Wade, are you accusing me?" He didn't answer, just silence. She stood abruptly. "God, you think I'd need your money? You think I'd betray you over a few damn numbers?" Wade tried to stay calm. "I just need you to explain. Maybe someone used you." "No, no one used me. You're the one doing that now." He clenched his fists, turned away, afraid that if he looked at her, his defenses would crumble. "Donna, I have to protect the company. You understand that shareholders, the press—" "What about me?" she interrupted, voice trembling. "You promised to believe me no matter what. And now, because of a few lines of data, you look at me like a criminal. I'm sorry, but I need time." "No, Wade, you don't need time. You need faith, and you don't have it." The air between them shattered. Donna trembled with anger and fear, not of losing him, but of losing everything they'd built. She reached into her bag and pulled out a white envelope, the ultrasound of 2 tiny lives growing inside her. But her hand froze halfway. His eyes were too cold, too far away. She knew if she told him now, he wouldn't hear it with his heart, only with doubt. "You know," she said, voice breaking, "people can only betray when they've been trusted. You never really trusted me, so I never even had the chance to betray you." She left the envelope on the table and turned away. Wade stood frozen, throat tight, unable to speak. The door closed softly behind her, and the rain poured harder outside, as if to wash away the last trace of a love undone. Later, he opened the envelope, but the ultrasound image was already smudged by rain, the shapes blurred beyond recognition. He thought it was some medical form. He didn't know it was the first picture of his unborn children. 2 days later, everything fell apart. The press circled like vultures. Shareholders called an emergency meeting. Wade was forced to sign a statement. Donna Bennett to be temporarily removed from her advisory role at Bennett Global. He didn't realize this document was the final knife, severing what was left between them. Donna left Grandma Ruby's house for a small apartment on the city's outskirts. She avoided reporters, avoided friends. Grandma Ruby cried, "At least let me talk to him, honey." Donna shook her head. "There's nothing left to say, Grandma. He chose to believe his world. I have to choose mine." She placed her hands over her belly, feeling 2 faint heartbeats. "I'm sorry, babies," she whispered. "I won't let anyone hurt you the way I've been hurt." Meanwhile, Wade drowned himself in work like an addict, chasing a fix. He told himself he was protecting Donna by staying silent, but in truth, he was slowly killing her. Colin Reeves controlled the narrative, feeding the media, until everyone believed Donna was responsible for the breach. Wade felt emptiness when the headline "Bennett Global Recovers CEO Acts" decisively appeared. He had saved the company, but lost his soul. Late one night, Elijah showed up at Bennett Tower. "You're a coward," he said, voice shaking with anger. "My sister's pregnant. Did you even know that?" Wade froze. "What did you say?" "She didn't tell you." "Of course, she didn't. You killed her trust before she could." Wade grabbed his shoulders. "Are you telling the truth?" "It's too late. She's gone." Elijah stormed out, leaving Wade collapsing in the empty hallway. The world spun. He ran to Grandma Ruby's house, pounding on the door, but the older woman just looked at him, her eyes red. "She's not here, and if you really love her, let her be. Please, Grandma Ruby, I have to talk to her." "You already did with every doubt you threw at her." Wade sank onto the steps, the rain soaking through his clothes, numbing him to the bone. He remembered every moment: Donna's laughter, her voice in the kitchen, her promise under the golden lights. All gone like smoke. He lifted a trembling hand to his face, unsure whether it was rain or tears he felt. The next morning, the lawyer called. "Miss Carter has filed for divorce. She's asking for nothing." Nothing. No money, no property, no conditions. "And the baby?" She didn't mention it. Wade signed. His hand shook, ink bleeding into the paper. Each stroke felt like something being torn from his soul. When done, he folded the document, set the pen down, and looked around the vast penthouse. The wedding photo still sat on the shelf, Donna's radiant smile, his gaze fixed on her as if she were the only thing that existed. Now, he couldn't bear to look at it. That night, Wade went to the airport with a ticket to Atlanta, where he knew she had gone. But as he waited to board, a message from Colin appeared. "Careful, the board is meeting. If you leave now, they'll remove you." He stood there, staring at the screen and the gate flashing, "Atlanta, boarding now." He clenched the ticket, then let it fall. It hit the floor as the boarding call echoed overhead, and at that moment, Wade knew he had made the wrong choice. Outside, the rain kept falling, and in a small apartment on the outskirts of Atlanta, Donna sat by the window, hand resting on her belly, listening to her baby's heartbeat. "We'll be okay," she whispered. "We don't have a father, but we have a mother." She looked at their wedding photo, face down on the table, then blew out the half-burned candle beside it. The light went out, and all that was left between them was darkness. 3 weeks after Donna left, Chicago refused to let go of winter. Outside Bennett Tower, snow blanketed the streets. Inside, Wade Bennett moved like a shadow through glass corridors. No one spoke to him. No one dared mention Donna's name. He worked endlessly, barely sleeping. He stayed in his office every night until the automated lights went out, then turned them back on again. Some nights, he opened the window and let the icy wind sting his face, to be sure he was still alive. One early February morning, his phone rang. It was the Financial Crimes Division. "Mr. Bennett, we need you to come in. There's been a development in the data breach case." Wade went immediately. In the meeting room, The investigator placed a thick folder on the table. "We've arrested the primary suspect, Colin Reeves." The air froze. Wade's voice cracked. "What did you say?" "Colin used the company's internal account to export data, then rerouted the transactions through your wife's account to divert suspicion. We have all the logs and evidence." Wade shot to his feet, hands trembling. He flipped through the files, dry sheets filled with code, forged emails, every trail pointing to Colin. One line stood out in bold. "No evidence found linking Donna Carter Bennett. She is completely exonerated." In that instant, the world collapsed around him, not because he'd lost, but because he had won too late. The last image of Donna came rushing back. Her wounded eyes, the rain on her cheeks, her voice trembling. "You never really believed in me." He sank into a chair, head in his hands. No tears, just a heavy silence that pressed the air from his lungs. The investigator said something, but Wade didn't hear. All that echoed in his mind was her voice, faint and distant, as if from another life. "Trust the smallest thing." He left the station and drove straight to Grandma Ruby's house. Rain poured down again, a sudden storm in the middle of winter. When she opened the door, her face looked years older, worn by grief. "You already know, don't you?" he asked. She nodded. "Rumors travel fast. But truth always comes late. Just like you." He stepped inside. The house was the same photos of Donna as a child. The scent of jasmine, warmth from the stove. "Where is she, Grandma?" "She's gone." "Gone where?" "You think I'd tell you," she said, voice trembling with anger. "She took your children with her. She was so broken I feared she wouldn't make it, and you're asking me where she went." Wade stood there, hollow. "I didn't know." "That's right. You didn't. Because you never listened." She stepped closer and pressed a hand to his chest. "You know what scares a woman most? Not betrayal. Being doubted by the one she trusted with everything." Wade bowed his head, tears falling onto her frail hand. "Grandma Ruby. What do I do?" "There's no do left, son. Only endure." He sat for a long while, staring at Donna's framed photo on the table, her smile bright, her eyes full of hope. He touched the glass and whispered, "Donna, I was wrong. You weren't the one who betrayed us. I was." That night, Wade drove aimlessly through the city past the Riverside Center, where they had once painted walls together, the park, and the little diner they used to stop at. Everywhere he stopped, he just stood still. The city carried on as usual, only she was missing from it. Back home, he opened the envelope Donna had left behind. The ultrasound image had dried, faint but visible under the light. 2 tiny forms, side by side. 2. Wade's knees gave out. "Oh God," he choked. "You were pregnant, with twins." He broke down, no more restraint, nor pride left. The sobs of a man who once thought he was invincible dissolved into nothing. The next morning, Wade left Chicago. He flew to Atlanta, knocking on the doors of Donna's old friends, searching every address he could find. No one knew. Miss Thelma Temperance, the teacher who had raised Donna and countless children, was the last person he found. Her small house sat by the river, bathed in sunlight and the hum of cicadas. When Wade entered, she looked up, already knowing. "You've come for her." "Yes. It's too late. Do you know where she is?" She didn't answer right away. She looked out at the water and said quietly, "Someone once asked me what love is. I said, it's when you can let someone go without needing them to promise they'll return." "Ma'am, I can't let her go," Wade said, his voice shaking. "Then why did you love her?" "Because she made me feel like I had a heart." The older woman smiled sadly. "Then keep that heart alive. It doesn't need her to exist, but you need it to keep from dying inside." He nodded, eyes glistening. Before he left, Miss Thelma handed him a small envelope. "She left this with me before she went. I think it's time you had it." Inside was a handwritten note. "Don't look for me. Find yourself the man I once believed in." And below it, a single line. "When you truly learn how to love, you'll realize I never really left." Wade held the letter for the entire flight home, reading it repeatedly until the paper was wrinkled and soft. For the first time he understood. Love isn't about holding on. It's about learning how to live with loss. Months passed. He searched still through networks, charities, old friends, but Donna vanished as if the world had swallowed her into its quietest corner. Every night, he opened the window and looked out over the city, whispering, "I'm sorry." No reply, only wind, and the flicker of lights below like extinguished hopes. That year, the papers reported Colin Reeves's conviction. Wade refused all interviews. He withdrew from public life, stopped attending events, and stopped speaking about anything but work. He worked, earned, worked again, as if labor could fill the emptiness inside him. But every night, entering his apartment, he still saw the chair where Donna once sat, the teacup with her lip mark, the wedding photo face down on the table. He couldn't bear to turn it over. A year later, Wade finalized the divorce alone in a lawyer's office. As the pen touched paper, he whispered, "Donna Carter Bennett, the only woman I ever loved, and the last I ever lost." The lawyer asked, "Would you like to include any conditions?" "No," Wade said softly. "She's paid enough. Now it's my turn." He stepped outside into the wind, a man in an expensive suit, eyes empty, as if searching for his soul somewhere among the glass towers. That night, he returned to Riverside, the center they had once revived together. It was closed now, abandoned again. Dust covered everything. The faint scent of old paint lingered. He knelt, placing a hand on the cold floor. "Donna," he whispered, "I'll rebuild this place, even if you never come back." The wind swept through the broken window, carrying the echoes of the past. He lifted his head, tears streaking down his face, but this time, not just from pain, because now he understood. You finally realize how deeply you were loved, only when you lose something. 2 years is long enough for the world to change, for someone to believe they've forgotten, and for a memory to harden into a scar that never heals. For Wade Bennett, those 2 years were 2 years of living without truly being alive. He was still the CEO, still signing contracts, still appearing in flawless suits, still giving stiff answers to the press. But everyone knew his eyes were different. The pride was gone. The spark of victory was extinguished. All that remained was the emptiness of a man who had won everything except himself. Every night, he sat alone in his penthouse, replaying the only recording left on his phone, Donna's voice from a Riverside speech. "When we look at a child, don't ask what they need from the world. Ask what the world can learn from them." Her voice, clear and calm, floated through the cold room. He played it over and over, as if hearing it enough times might bring her back. Wade flew to Charlotte, North Carolina, for a real estate investors' meeting one spring morning. It was an ordinary business trip, but fate hides best in ordinary things. After hours of negotiations that afternoon, he returned to his hotel. The southern air was softer than Chicago's. The wind carried the scent of grass and the chatter of birds. He passed a small lakeside park, with a few wooden benches and a sandy playground. He sat down, about to check his phone, then heard it. Laughter, high, bright, round as a drop of water. He looked up. A short distance away, 2 little girls chased each other around an oak tree, one in a yellow dress, one in blue. Both around 3 years old, curls bouncing, eyes sparkling. They laughed, shouted, and circled the woman sitting nearby, who watched them with a tender, tired look that struck him like lightning. "Donna." Wade froze. For a second, he thought he was dreaming. She looked different, thinner, her hair longer, her eyes calmer than he'd ever seen them. She wore a simple white dress, a notebook in her lap. Every so often, she looked up and smiled at the girls. The afternoon sun traced a gold halo around her hair. He took one step forward, then stopped. Fear rooted him in place. Then, the girl in the yellow dress tripped and fell, scraping her knee. Donna rushed over, scooping her up, whispering, "It's okay, Amari. Mommy's here." The other girl ran over, holding her sister's hand. "Zuri, tell Mommy, Sissy hurt." Those names, Amari, Zuri, they hit him like thunder. Wade staggered back, hands trembling. Two little girls, identical to twin raindrops, and both had the same deep brown eyes, his eyes. He didn't need a DNA test. He knew. He knew by blood, by instinct, by the ache in his chest. They were his daughters. He didn't know how long he stood there. Only when Donna finally looked up and met his gaze did everything stop. Even the wind seemed to pause between them. She froze, then fear flashed across her face. She pulled the girls close. "Girls, stay near Mommy." Wade stepped forward, voice trembling, as though speaking to a ghost. "Donna." She shook her head. "Don't, Wade. I just want to talk." "Not here," she said quietly, firmly. "Not in front of them." He glanced down at the girls. Zuri stared back at him with wide, curious eyes. "Hi, mister," she said softly. Wade smiled weakly, kneeling. "Hi, sweetheart." Donna reached for her hand. "Zuri, come here." He looked up at Donna, voice breaking. They're mine, aren't they?" Her silence was sharper than a blade. "You don't have the right to ask that." His chest tightened painfully. "I didn't know, Donna. I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't." "No, Wade. You chose not to know." She held her daughters closer, her tone low, steady. "You had the chance to trust me. You killed it with your own hands. What are you doing here now? I didn't come looking for you. I just saw you. Then keep it that way. Keep walking." The words were soft, but they shattered him completely. He wanted to speak, beg, and make something right, but the children were watching, and he knew that if he broke down now, he'd only frighten them. So all he said was, "I'm sorry." Donna's eyes were cold as stone. "Keep that sorry, Wade. Don't turn it into another betrayal." She turned away, taking the girls' hands. Zuri looked back, waving, smiling. "Bye, mister." Wade managed to whisper, "Bye, sweetheart." He watched their three silhouettes fade behind the trees. The wind rose, leaves fell, sunlight dimmed. A man knelt in the middle of the park, face in his hands, weeping, not because he'd been left, but because he'd finally seen what was worth loving too late. That night, Wade returned to his hotel, still in his rumpled suit, mud on his shoes. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, mind blank. He searched her name online. Donna Carter, Charlotte. Hundreds of results appeared, including volunteer events, charity photos, and Donna smiling among people. In every image, she looked strong, so peaceful that he realized her life no longer needed him in it. He found one photo of two little girls at an event, Amari and Zuri, handing flowers to their mother. The caption read, "My two little angels taught me that happiness doesn't come from being forgiven but from not holding on to hate." Wade read it again and again, tears spilling freely. He called the organization where she worked, his voice shaking. "This is Wade Bennett. I want to speak to Donna Carter." "Sorry," the voice on the line said. "Miss Carter doesn't take personal visitors. If you'd like to donate, please email us." He gave a broken laugh, the sound of a man who finally understood he no longer belonged to the world of the woman he loved. The next day, he returned to the park to sit where she had been. The bench was empty. Children's laughter floated in the distance, but none belonged to Amari or Zuri. Wade closed his eyes, breathing in the scent of grass and wind, imprinting it in his memory one last time. Then he stood and whispered, "I won't disturb your peace again. I promise." But walking away, his heart ached with every step, because now he finally understood the cruelest truth of love. When you truly love someone, you stop wanting them to return, you want them to be at peace, even if it means being alone for the rest of your life. That night, Donna sat in her living room while the girls slept. She gazed out the window as the rain began to fall. She knew he had been there. She knew he had cried. And though she didn't want to admit it, her heart trembled when Zuri had said, "Mommy, that man had eyes just like mine." Donna smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Yes," she whispered, "like someone Mommy once loved." She wasn't angry anymore, but forgiveness still felt far away, because forgiveness takes time. And in her heart, the wound was healing, but slowly. So slowly. Wade sat by the hotel window somewhere else, watching rain slide down the glass. He didn't know where he'd go next, no plan, no direction. He only opened his notebook and wrote, "Today, I saw the person who once was my entire world. But that world has closed its door, and I stand outside looking through the glass, knowing I belong exactly where I am." The night breeze carried a faint voice from the street below. "Let it go, let it go." Wade smiled faintly and closed his eyes, not because he had forgotten, but because he was finally learning how to let go. After that day in the park, when Wade saw Donna and the two little girls, he was never the same again. He returned to Chicago, but everything had lost its meaning. Meetings, numbers, faces of employees, they were just noise. Every time he entered his office, he could still hear faint laughter, two little girls, echoes of a memory he could never touch again. One night, he opened his laptop and began to write an email to Donna. Over and over, he wrote, deleted, wrote again. Finally, he sent only one line. I'm sorry, not for something specific, but for everything. 3 days later, he received an automated reply. The recipient has declined incoming messages. He didn't give up. He wrote a letter by hand and sent it to the charity where she worked. He told her he'd kept the Riverside Project alive and was trying to help other children, not to redeem himself, but to ensure he never repeated the same mistake. He ended the letter with, I don't ask for forgiveness. I hope you know I live by what you once taught me. A week later, the letter came back. The envelope was sealed and unopened. On the front, in neat handwriting, recipient refused. Wade let out a quiet laugh, a soundless one, just a tremor at the corner of his lips. 3 months later, Wade returned to Charlotte. He hadn't called or written ahead. He just hoped to see her again, even from afar. But the little house where Donna had lived was empty. He went to Elijah's instead, her brother's home. Elijah opened the door and blocked the way, eyes cold as steel. What are you doing here, Wade? I just want to know if Donna's all right. You think you have the right to ask that? Wade stayed silent. Elijah gave a bitter laugh. 2 years ago, my sister was pregnant, and you threw her out into the rain. You know who found her collapsed on the porch? Me. You weren't there when she needed you most. I know, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life. Then don't come here again. Forgiveness isn't mine to give, it's God's. But I think even he might need time. Wade turned to leave, but stood outside the gate for a long while. As he was walking away, Elijah called after him, You know she had twins, right? Wade stopped, nodded softly. She named them Amari and Zuri Swahili for strength and beauty. The two things she couldn't find in you. The words pierced deeper than any accusation. Wade didn't respond. He just bowed his head. As he stepped out of the alley, summer rain began to fall, warm, but cold against his skin. He stood there, letting the rain hide the tears he didn't want anyone to see. That night, Wade attended a social impact conference by chance. Donna was the keynote speaker. She took the stage in a white suit, hair tied up, eyes steady and confident. Her voice carried through the microphone. No one is perfect, but the most beautiful thing we can do is rise from our ruins and not let our hearts turn to stone. Wade sat in the back row, silent, listening to every word. Each sentence was a knife cutting, yet full of light. When the talk ended, he waited in the hallway. Donna emerged and froze when she saw him. He spoke softly. I just wanted to say congratulations. You've done what I couldn't. She nodded, her tone composed. And you did what I couldn't, broke someone so completely they had to learn how to heal themselves. I don't need you anymore, Wade. Her words carried no anger, only truth. And somehow, that made them hurt even more. Wade nodded, his eyes blurred. I know, but I'm still here, even if all I can do is watch you from afar and hope you're happy. Donna paused for a long moment, then said quietly, If you still love me, let me have my peace. She walked away, her small frame swallowed by the crowd. Wade stood there, motionless. This time, he didn't call out, didn't follow, because he finally understood sometimes. Stepping back is the only act of love left. After that night, Wade returned to Chicago, but not to himself. He stopped appearing in public. He handed over control of Bennett Global to the board and withdrew from everything. The headlines read, Wade Bennett retires early at 39, personal reasons. No one knew that the reason was a name, Donna. He sold the penthouse and moved into a small house in the suburbs. Each morning, he brewed coffee and watched sunlight spill through the window. No more luxury watches, no suits, no whiskey. Just a notebook filled with fragments of thoughts about Donna and the children who never got to call him Dad. One day, he received a postcard. No sender, just one line. We're doing fine. Thank you for staying away." He recognized her handwriting. Wade smiled a faint, tender smile. He knew it was a minor forgiveness, spoken through silence. That same year, the Riverside Project was revived no longer under Bennett Global, but under a new name, the Donna Carter Foundation. The media praised her. Reporters asked, "Who inspired you to do this?" Donna only replied, "Someone who taught me that love isn't enough if we don't know how to trust." Wade read that line in the paper, folded it, and smiled sadly. "At least I left something useful behind," he murmured. He began volunteering at community centers. No one recognized him as the former billionaire from magazine covers. They only knew him as Mr. Wade, the quiet man who taught children to read and count. One afternoon, a brown-skinned girl named Maya, about 8, asked, "Do you have a family, Mr. Wade?" He smiled gently. "Yes, but they're far away. Do you miss them?" "Every day." "Then why don't you go find them?" He chuckled softly. "Sometimes, missing someone is the best way to love them without hurting them again." Maya tilted her head, thoughtful though she didn't fully understand. Wade patted her hair, realizing that some things can only be passed on, never reclaimed. One rainy evening in Chicago, Wade sat down to write another letter. Not to send, to write. "Donna, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I still remember the park, the look in your eyes, the laughter of our girls. If you ever wonder how I'm doing, I'm still here, quiet, living like a keeper of memories. I'm not waiting for you anymore, because I know you deserve the freedom I once took from you. But if there's another life, I hope we meet again when we've both learned to trust from the start." He folded the letter and placed it beside their wedding photo in a drawer. Then he turned off the light. Outside, rain fell softly, steady and calm, like a heart finally at peace after years of breaking. Wade Bennett, the man who once had everything, was left with only one thing: the silence of love. That autumn, Chicago softened after months of storms. Along the paths by Lake Michigan, maple leaves turned red and fell gently like time exhaling. Every morning, Wade Bennett walked with a cup of coffee, no phone ringing or driver waiting. It had been 8 months since he'd left Bennett Global, and in those 8 months, he had aged in a way that felt like 80 years of growing up. He'd sold the penthouse and moved to a small street in West Town, where wooden houses stood shoulder to shoulder, neighbors waved good morning, and no one knew he had once been a billionaire. His new house was barely 1,000 square feet, with cream-colored walls and a small window looking out at a patch of green. On the first morning, Wade stood in the middle of his modest living room, breathing deeply. Nothing was luxurious about it, but it felt like home for the first time in his life. He brewed his coffee every morning, turned on an old jazz station, and wrote in his journal. On the first page, he wrote a single line: "I used to think money could change the world. But real change begins only when we dare to change ourselves." One morning, while walking through a local market, he noticed a hand-painted sign pinned outside a community center: "Volunteers needed, tutors for orphan children." He stood there for a long time. The words reminded him of Riverside, Donna, and the children who once called him Mr. Wall Street, who can play basketball. That afternoon, Wade went to sign up. The manager, a round, middle-aged black woman named Mrs. Jenkins, peered at him skeptically. "Ever taught kids before?" "No." "Got any of your own?" "No." "Then what brings you here?" Wade answered softly, "I want to learn how to be an adult again." She studied him for a moment, then chuckled. "Good answer. All right, Mr. Adult. You start Monday." From then on, Wade volunteered at the center 3 days a week. He taught math, reading, and how to write letters. At first, the kids were wary of him, a tall, quiet man with a low voice, but soon they discovered he could tell stories that made sadness sound gentle. "Your stories sound sad but feel warm," said Javon, a bright-eyed, wiry boy. "Maybe because I really was sad once," Wade smiled. Javon reminded him of himself at 12, an orphan boy in a state-run home, always on guard but secretly hoping someone might believe in him. One afternoon, the boy asked, "Mr. Wade, why don't you have kids?" Wade froze, then said quietly, "Because I lost the chance to be a father." "'Cause you did something bad?" "Yes. I didn't trust what I should have trusted." The boy frowned. Aren't you scared no one will forgive you? Wade looked at him and smiled gently. I used to be. But I've learned forgiveness doesn't always come from others. It starts with yourself. After that, he stayed longer each day, helping the kids fix each math problem and sound out each sentence. And slowly, he understood what Donna once meant when she said, "Being present is the most expensive gift." Now he understood. Being present wasn't about giving money but showing up with your heart. By the following March, the Chicago Tribune ran a small piece. Former billionaire spotted volunteering at orphan center, refuses to reveal his identity. The photo showed Wade laughing, his hands smeared with paint while fixing a fence. It spread quickly, and people recognized him, but he didn't care. For Wade, this wasn't redemption. It was living. One evening, Miss Thelma Temperance called. Her voice was thin with age, but still warm. "Wade, I heard you're teaching children?" "Yes, Mum." "Do you know Donna's being honored at this year's charity gala?" He was silent. "You should go," she said. "Not to talk, to witness." "You think she'd want to see me?" "Maybe not. But sometimes, seeing the one who once broke you still standing, it helps close the chapter." Wade smiled faintly. "Then I'll go." The gala was held in New Orleans, a city that smelled of sea wind and saxophones drifting from every corner. Wade arrived a day early, renting a small room by the Mississippi River. That night, he sat on the balcony, listening to jazz in the distance, watching the lights shimmer on the water. He wrote in his notebook, "Tomorrow, she'll be on that stage. I'll be in the back row. She may not see me, but I'll see her, and maybe that will be enough." The next morning, he volunteered at a local kitchen preparing food for children with disabilities. To his surprise, Javon from Chicago appeared. "Mr. Wade, they let me come with the group." Wade smiled, dusting flour from his hands. "Good for you, kid. Are you nervous?" "A little. 'Cause you're gonna see someone from before, huh?" "Yeah." "Then stand tall. Don't bow your head. Good people don't bow unless they're saying sorry." Wade laughed, tousled the boy's hair. "Where'd you learn that?" "From you. You didn't get mad when I spilled milk on your shirt." Wade paused, eyes softening. "Thank you, Javon. I needed that today." That evening, the gala occurred at an old French Quarter hotel, with lights, soft jazz, and a grace-filled room. Donna walked onto the stage in a deep blue gown, the light touching her hair like moonlight. When the announcer said, "Please welcome Donna Carter, founder of the Children First Foundation," the audience applauded. Wade sat in the back, heart steady but heavy. Donna spoke calmly, voice clear and complete with quiet power. "I once believed love alone could make us better people, but now I know trust is even more essential. I'm not here to talk about what I lost, but to remind us that sometimes losing is the only way to rediscover the true meaning of love." Wade watched her, tears running freely, but he didn't wipe them away. In that moment, he realized he no longer hurt because he'd lost her. He was grateful because he had once had her. When the gala ended, he didn't approach Donna. He walked through the hallway, stopping on the balcony overlooking the street below. The night wind carried the distant sound of a saxophone, mingling with the hush of the river. He smiled faintly and whispered, "Donna, I've changed. Maybe you'll never know, but I know." He left New Orleans the next morning quietly, leaving no trace. On the plane, he wrote the final line in his notebook. "I once loved someone who taught me that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing not to hurt them anymore." As the plane lifted above the horizon, sunlight spilled across the clouds, painting everything gold. Wade closed his eyes, not from weariness, but because, at last, he felt peace. New Orleans has a way of forcing people to be honest with themselves, with the past. Maybe it's the wind drifting off the Mississippi, the saxophones on Bourbon Street, or the sudden rain that falls over a night already glowing with golden lights. That night, after the charity gala ended, Wade remained in the last row of the now empty hall. The stage lights were dimmed, only a few staff cleared tables, the soft clinking of glasses echoing faintly. He didn't know what he was waiting for. Maybe a miracle. Perhaps just one last glimpse of Donna before leaving her world forever. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy. It struck the glass roof and splattered over the stone steps, scattering under the streetlights. Wade stepped onto the back balcony of the hotel overlooking the dark Mississippi River. He leaned on the railing, rain soaking through his shirt, cold but clarifying. He didn't know Donna was there too. She had just left the press room, still holding the medal she'd been awarded. She needed air to escape the compliments, and the camera flashed. But when she stepped onto the balcony, she froze. At the far end stood a man, his shadow long against the rain, shirt drenched, shoulders slightly bowed. Wade. She wanted to turn back, but her feet didn't obey. The rain thickened. Wind hissed through the cracks of the old doors. He turned. They looked at each other, long enough to hear the rhythm of their own hearts. "Hello, Donna." His voice was low, rough, and trembling with emotion. "You still like standing in the rain, don't you?" Her tone was soft, but not cold. "I don't know what I like anymore," he said quietly. "Only that the rain makes me feel real." Donna walked a few steps closer, stopping about 6 feet from him. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Not to disturb your peace," he replied. "I came just to see you once more. You've seen me. You can go now." "I will," he said. "But before I go, I need to say thank you." "Thank you," she repeated, brows furrowing slightly. "Thank you for teaching me how to become the man you once believed I could be." "I'm not the same anymore, Donna." She was silent. Rain tangled her hair, darkened the silk at her shoulders. "I can see that," she said at last. "You've changed, but that doesn't make things right again." "I know. I don't want to make them right. I need to say something I never said before." "What?" "I believe you. Late but truly." Donna closed her eyes. 2 years ago, she had prayed to hear those words, but now that they had come, they couldn't save anything. Like a song that ends before you understand the lyrics. By the time you do, it's too late to start over. "You know, Wade," she whispered, "there was a time I thought everything might have been different if you had believed me then. But now I think maybe not. We weren't ready to love the right way. Maybe you're right. You made me lose faith in the world," she said softly, "but you taught me how to stand alone. I don't hate you anymore." Wade lifted his head. In her eyes, no anger was left, only a quiet sadness after surviving a storm. "Hearing you say that, I can live peacefully now." "Peacefully?" She smiled faintly. "You once said you couldn't sleep without seeing me again. It's different now. I can sleep because I know you no longer hate me." Lightning tore the sky open, casting their faces in white light. Wade smiled gently and stepped back, not closer. "Are you happy, Donna?" "I'm at peace," she said. "Happiness feels far away, but peace is enough." "I'm glad," he said softly. She looked at him for a long time, trying to remember this image forever. "And you?" "I'm happy," he said, "because I see that you're at peace." Rain poured harder, scattering drops across their faces. Donna turned to leave, but Wade's voice stopped her, shaking slightly. "Donna." She paused. "If someday you can truly forgive me," he said, "don't do it because I deserve it. Do it because you deserve to be free from the pain." She didn't turn around. Her voice was barely audible beneath the rain. "Maybe that day will come." Then she walked away, her white silhouette fading into the storm. Wade stayed there, eyes closed, rain mixing with tears. The storm raged, but inside him, a small light flickered, not hope, but release. That night, the city lost power. New Orleans glowed only with candlelight and flashlights, like a dream half awake. Wade returned to his room, clothes still soaked but strangely warm. He opened the window and let the wind rush in, lightning flashing across the river's surface. He sat at the desk and opened his journal. His hand trembled as he wrote the final line. "Tonight, I saw her again. She didn't forgive me, but she didn't hate me either. Maybe. That's what forgiveness truly is." He closed the book and leaned back, exhaling deeply. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. Not because he was loved again, but because he no longer needed love to feel whole. By morning, the rain was gone, the sky impossibly clear. Donna left early with her charity group. She didn't know Wade was still there, and he didn't try to find her. But as her van crossed the bridge over the Mississippi, she glanced out the window and saw, on the far bank, a man playing ball with a group of children, shirt sleeves rolled up, laughter wide and real. She recognized the outline for an instant, then looked away. Inside her chest, something stirred a hollow space, but no longer painful. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you, Wade." That afternoon, Wade joined the children by the river. A boy tugged his sleeve. "Mr. Wade, weren't you scared of the storm last night?" He smiled. "No. I've lived through a bigger one inside myself. Are you okay now?" "Yes," he said, quietly. "I am." The boy nodded and ran off. Wade watched him go, his eyes calm, gentle. He knew the past would always remain, but it was no longer a prison, it was a teacher. As the sun set, its light spilled through droplets still clinging to the trees, turning them honey-colored. Wade lifted his head, took a deep breath, and smiled. Not the smile of a man who was loved, but of a man who had finally learned to love the right way. 2 years had passed since that rainy night in New Orleans. Time had faded many things, the tears, the scars, the echoes of what once was. But it had also grown new things in their place: maturity, understanding, and gratitude. Wade Bennett lived quietly now in a small house in Lake Michigan. No more CEO schedules, no more conferences or interviews. Each morning, he brewed coffee, turned on the radio, and listened to updates about the charity projects he quietly funded. His organization, Bemmel's Initiative, is now run independently and focused solely on helping children in foster care. His name no longer appeared on any banner. Wade had told the board, "If you want to help the kids, don't use my name. Use the names of those who are never called." He still taught math at the community center every week. The kids called him Mr. Wade, the math teacher, never knowing that he had once been worth hundreds of millions, and he didn't need them to. One late autumn afternoon, Maya, the same girl who years ago asked why he didn't find his family, was now 13. She sat beside him and asked, "Mr. Wade, did you ever love someone?" He smiled gently. "Yes. Someone who taught me that love isn't about holding on but letting someone be free." Was she pretty? She was. But the most beautiful thing about her wasn't her face. It was how she believed in what was right, even when no one else did. Maya thought for a moment, then whispered, "Are you sure she knows you loved her?" Wade looked out the window, where the lake shimmered under the afternoon light. "I don't know," he said softly, "but I'm sure she's happy, and that's enough." He smiled faintly, his voice light as the wind. When you love someone truly, you don't need them to know. You have to live so that, if they ever look back, they'll see you became someone worthy of that love. One winter evening, Wade received a letter from an unfamiliar address. The handwriting slanted, slightly elegant, familiar enough to make his heart pause. He opened it. It wasn't long, just a few lines. "Wade, I've heard about the things you've done. I don't know if you need to hear this, but I want to say it. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Zuri and Amari are growing up, and they ask about you sometimes. I tell them their father is a man who learned to love through his actions, not words. Maybe one day, when they're ready, I'll let them meet you, not to remember the past, but to see that people can truly change. Take care of yourself. Donna." Wade read it again and again, until his tears blurred the ink. He didn't cry because he was forgiven. He cried because Donna was still Donna, strong, honest, and heartbreakingly kind. That night, he walked to the lakeshore. Snow was falling, light as dust. Each flake melted into the dark water like a quiet apology released into the world. Wade sat on a bench, eyes on the horizon, whispering, "Thank you for teaching me that forgiveness isn't about forgetting someone's wrongs, it's about remembering without pain." Donna and her daughters visited Chicago for an education conference the following spring. That morning, the park near the lake was full of sunlight and laughter. Amari and Zuri ran across the grass, their hair flying in the wind. Donna sat on a bench, reading a newspaper. "Mommy," Amari called out, "it's Mr. Wade, the man who teaches us to draw." Donna looked up. Across the field, Wade was sitting with a group of children, showing them how to color. The sunlight touched the silver in his hair. He was smiling, eyes soft and calm, exactly as she remembered. Their eyes met across the park. No running, no tears, only a quiet smile, the smile of two people who had survived love. Donna nodded. Wade returned it, his gaze saying what words no longer needed. Thank you. The girls came running back, holding up their drawing full of color. Mommy, Mr. Wade said, if we draw enough, we'll see rainbows even when it doesn't rain. Donna smiled at them, then at the picture. He's right, she said gently. She looked back. Wade was gone. Only a small notebook remained on the bench where he'd sat today. Inside, on the final page, were his handwritten words. If you see a rainbow one day, it means I've finally learned to love without fear of losing. Donna closed the book, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of peace. When she looked up, a faint rainbow arched across the sky left over from last night's rain. She whispered, "You did it, Wade." And somewhere, between wind and light, it was as if a voice answered, "Thank you for believing people can change." Donna took her daughter's hands and walked through the park. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. There were no endings left to write. Wade returned to the community center, sitting among laughing children, his eyes bright as if he had been reborn. He no longer measured his life by money, mistakes, or anyone's forgiveness. He measured it by one simple truth. Was I kind to the world today? That was the only answer that mattered. In the end, our story isn't about a love that broke apart, but about two people who once hurt each other, choosing to live in a way that made that pain give birth to something better. Donna Carter, Wade Bennett.